Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about signs you might be the black sheep or scapegoat of a family system. Really quickly, let's just distinguish between a black sheep and a scapegoat. A black sheep is a family member who is not seen as conforming to the rest of what the family is doing or what they should be doing, kind of like an ugly duckling. Whereas a scapegoat is a family member who tends to be blamed for everything that goes wrong in the family, particularly by at least one narcissistic member of the family. Now, in this video, I'm going to be using them pretty interchangeably because I do find that these two go hand in hand. And before I go into what the signs are that you might be the black sheep or scapegoat of your family, let's just spend a little bit of time talking about how the scapegoat actually develops. Who decides who becomes a scapegoat and how does that look? So in narcissistic family systems where there are one or more narcissists, people are assigned strict roles. For example, there's usually a golden child, an invisible child, and a scapegoat or black sheep. This is because narcissists need someone to idealize all the time, and they need somebody to devalue all the time. There is no wiggle room, right? There's no in-between where you can be a little bit idealized and a little bit devalued. If there are enough members in the family, those will become very strict roles. Other times it's because there are family systems where conflict is not addressed head-on, and instead one individual becomes the focal point meant to absorb all of the family tension. The person who gives kind of a neat, tidy narrative to explain why things go wrong. Typically this is the person who wants to communicate things more directly, who wants to bring things to the surface and work through them. Because that is not accepted by the family system, then that person is shunned as being the problem. But let's get into these 5 signs that you might be the black sheep or scapegoat of a family. Number 1, you don't quite fit in with the rest of the family and you just kind of feel like you're an outsider looking in. This could be in terms of career, lifestyle, values, or even just something superficial like your appearance. For example, if everyone in your family is in a specific field, let's say they're all engineers, but you're a musician, you might feel like the odd one out, the one that doesn't belong. Or if all of your family are conservative Mormons, but you identify as a progressive atheist, that'll definitely make you feel like there's a clash of values there and lifestyle probably. Or even if your family lives in rural Ohio and you have been living a fast-paced life in New York City for the past 5 years, your life is going to look very different and it might feel like you are an outsider looking in to this family system. You might feel out of the loop, like you're listening in on an inside joke, like everyone is so much closer than you. If this is the case, you are probably the black sheep of the family, but this is the most innocuous of the signs because it doesn't necessarily point at anyone using this against you. Now, when we talk about the next sign that you might be the black sheep or scapegoat of the family, where the fact that you're different is kind of weaponized against you and pathologized. So number 2, your life choices are seen as a threat to the family's conventions. Every family has its set of conventions and norms, and anything that positions you as different from a narcissistic system's norms or conventions is typically going to put a target on your back because it's seen as threatening. If you value something different than what the other people in your family value, then it must be that you disdain how they do things because that's how narcissists think. They don't think in terms of I have my values, you have yours, I have my lifestyle, you have yours. They think in terms of mine has to be better than yours. There has to be a hierarchy. And therefore, if you are different from me, then I need to figure out where you lie on that hierarchy. And if my ego is fragile, I'm going to find a way to frame you as being beneath me. So you might be framed as being rebellious, unconventional, problematic in some way. When your family is answering their friends' questions about you, for instance, there might be some embarrassment in answering questions and answering the fact that you have chosen to do things a little bit differently from them, a little bit more unconventionally. And your choices are seen as a problem meant to be fixed. So you get this constant barrage of criticism when you're with your family, that you're not doing things right, that why can't you just conform? Why do you have to be so difficult? When really you're just trying to be yourself, you're just trying to live your life. In a narcissistic family system, you're going to be scapegoated for that if who you are differs from the norms. Number 3, you are punished for pointing out the family's dysfunction. If you're a person who sees the dysfunction within your family, points it out, and wants to address it, that puts a target on your back. If it's expected of you that you let the dysfunction continue and you're instead trying to cut toxic cycles, then the problem becomes your inability to accept the dysfunction, not the dysfunction itself. For example, an exchange might go something like this. Your father is coming. Remember what I told you, be polite to him. When am I ever not polite to him? Well, I'm just saying, don't raise your voice at him. Mom, I never raise my voice. He's the one that raises his voice. I'm just the one that points it out. Enough, he's coming. Don't you dare start a fight. Or it could sound something like this. Hey, did you tell my mom that she needs to ask for permission before coming over? Yeah, she mentioned she's gonna stop by on Saturday to see the kids, so I just asked her to check in with us first. Okay, Jess, that's really not okay. My mom felt very slighted. She can come over whenever she wants, okay? She doesn't need to check in with us. Well, I just thought it was like a pretty simple boundary. I don't see the issue. Like, we could be not at home, we could be doing something else. You've really upset her and you've gotta apologize when she comes over. As you can see with this last example, this often happens with the outsiders who marry in the family because it's of course so much easier to see dysfunction when you haven't been raised as a part of it. Outsiders can spot these things quicker and they often want to address them and set healthier boundaries. But if it's a narcissistic family structure, that's not going to be tolerated. And actually, in general, it's not well tolerated for an outsider to come in and tell you how to do things. So if you are the person wanting to fix and address the dysfunction in a family system, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be the scapegoat. Number 4, negative traits are projected onto you. Because this dynamic shows up a lot in families where people can't own their own problems, their worst traits and beliefs and perspectives and behaviors get projected onto the scapegoat. For example, let's say that your family gossips constantly and cruelly, but you are framed as airing out your dirty laundry when you go to therapy to discuss your family life. They're projecting what they do onto you. Or let's say that your family has very strong political opinions and really hates the other side. When you disagree with them on one thing politically, they accuse you of being hateful. Or let's say one of your siblings does something unfavorable, but since they're the golden child, you get accused of doing what they did instead. Now, it's hard enough being the sponge meant to absorb just one person's projections. It's absolutely awful, let alone a whole family system's projections. That is just devastating to feel like you are outnumbered and everyone is projecting all of these negative traits onto you. It's really hard not to let your self-esteem take a hit. And number 5, you are blamed for nearly every conflict or problem in the family. Particularly if you see the dysfunction and you try to fix it, your rocking the boat receives all the pent-up energy that doesn't instead go to fixing the dysfunction. For example, let's say that 2 people in the family system are having problems with each other. If you are the scapegoat, they might try to find a way to blame you for it. For example, they might say, Mommy and Daddy would never fight if you didn't always misbehave, or you're the reason why my husband has a wandering eye. Why can't you wear something decent around him? Even in situations where it's ridiculously clear that you had nothing to do with what went wrong, a family system that decides you are the scapegoat will find a way to blame you because it falls neatly into their narrative. It's become habit. It's become just like this knee-jerk reaction. Something goes wrong. Oh, it's Ellen's fault. Oh, it's Maria's fault. Oh, it's John's fault. How am I going to frame this in my head? How am I going to create a narrative that it's somehow their fault? Now, if I can just leave you with one thought, though, being scapegoated in a family system, or really in any type of system, is a very real thing. It does happen to a lot of people, and it is very heartbreaking. But be very careful not to turn that sense of victimhood into a part of your identity, because this is something that unfortunately can be a consequence of being scapegoated your whole life. You can start to become very defensive when interacting with other people, and you can start to assume that you are being scapegoated even in situations where maybe that's not actually the case. I mention this because I hope this video was validating for you if you were the black sheep or the scapegoat of your family, but I don't want you to get stuck there. I don't want you to get stuck in that victim mode, and I want you to realize that there are situations, there are systems out there where you will not be scapegoated, where you will be appreciated for what you bring to the table. You do not have to be the scapegoat forever, and therefore you don't have to always be looking, being hypervigilant for signs that you might be scapegoated, because that can also become really unhealthy. I hope that this video was helpful. Just as a reminder, if you're looking for a more in-depth exploration of healthy relationship skills, You can find all that in the connection course. And also, if you have a New Year's resolution this time of year, a goal that you're really hoping to hit, I created the Goal Getter course specifically with the intention of making it really easy for you to achieve your goals. So check those out, links below, and I will see you next time.